Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Sixers have 5 games to figure this Joel Embiid mess out, and if they can't, they have to consider a trade. Also, the Jets have now fired their head coach and their general manager, but still have the same quarterback and the same problems. Plus, the Celtics handed the Cavaliers their first loss of the season. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The vibes in Philly are fine, right? 76ers, Paul George in the building, Joel Embiid back. Everything's all great. Well, except for the worst record in basketball, tied with the Washington Wizards. And now reporting from Shams Charania that Tyrese Maxey called out Joel Embiid behind closed doors for his lateness, for his attitude. Kayla Santiago from Locked On Sixers, who we would never call out for lateness or attitude, joins us now. Kayla, it sounds like from what we've heard from the reporting is some of these things are potentially long-standing issues from Joel Embiid, but when he's playing the way that he was or has been in his career, it's one thing. This team is losing, and he doesn't look like Joel Embiid here. What do you make of all of this right now?
It's a dumpster fire, and I said that on Locked On 76ers. It is madness in Philadelphia right now. And you look at Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and Embiid has had some struggles with different players and different stars that have been grouped with him. For example, Ben Simmons. Him and James Harden tried to mesh well together, but it didn't really work out. The only person he really got along with, which was another really big star, was Jimmy Butler. And somebody you think that he likes and that they're friendly and they call each other brothers is Tyrese Maxey. So the fact that Maxey is calling Joel Embiid out and saying, listen, you need to step up or we're not going to do anything, it is crazy. I'm glad Tyrese Maxey said something, and I like the leader that he's being, because when you look in the future for the Philadelphia 76ers, he's going to be the new franchise guy. If Joel Embiid decides to actually play like a franchise player this year, it's going to be further for Tyrese Maxey, but it shouldn't be Tyrese Maxey telling the franchise player of the organization to, hey, you need to show up on time to work. You're talking about showing up on time to work. That is a precedent not only in the NBA, but through every single job that you have. Yeah. It's crazy to think about. So it's really, really hard to see the 76ers team fall that they are, because this was a season that you hope that they would really have NBA Finals aspirations, getting Paul George on the acquisition. But at the same time, it is just a mess right now. And I'm glad Tyrese called him out. But Tyrese shouldn't have to call out the franchise player of the organization. It's madness over there.
Yeah, and look, when Embiid has been on the court, we saw him last year before he got hurt. He was even better, I think, than he was in his MVP season. But there have still been the criticisms of his availability, of his fitness has not always been in shape. And this was supposed to be the year, right, Kayla? Like we heard, I'm in the best shape. I'm not going to play back-to-backs. It's all about winning a title. And then we're hearing that it's still not buttoned up. I mean, we're talking about a player who's 30 years old. Are we just past the point of saying Joel Embiid gets it when it comes to doing what is necessary to be a franchise player on a title team?
I think it's a tough situation, because you look at it and you say year after year, you had somebody to blame. You had Ben Simmons to blame. You have James Harden to blame. You never blamed Joel Embiid. It was always, well, the injuries were there, and that's what was stopping him from taking the team to the next level. And I was one of those people. But now, if Joel Embiid doesn't turn it around, he is absolutely the one to blame. And then you look back on all those seasons and say, was this just an attitude problem and his mindset the whole entire time? My biggest issue with this, if Joel Embiid is injured and his conditioning is not there, because we've seen him that throughout his career, that is one thing. He didn't have a free throw attempt, though, against Miami Heat. That's the first time since the 2017-2018 season. I'm talking about no swoops to try to get to the basket. That is like his go-to move when he is trying to get fouled. And we saw absolutely none of that. So that's not only I'm injured, that's I don't care about playing the game of basketball right now to me.
Yeah, and we know in the Eastern Conference with the way the Cavaliers and the Celtics look, especially, that's not going to be good enough. Even the Bucks, who looked lost early in the season, have found a little something here. What do they need to right the ship? Do you think this is salvageable with this core?
I think maybe it can be with Tyrese Maxey saying something in front of the rest of the players and the coaches. And Lowry was the one that actually called that meeting, was like, we need to get together. And Tyrese talked to Joel Embiid like that. And Joel, from the reports that we're seeing, took the criticism and was good about it, but then questioned the coaching toughness. So it's always something else with him. I think this is going to be a really big stretch. And Keith Pompey and I talked about this on Locked On 76ers. Let's look at these next 5 games come December. And if it is still this issue, you can kiss the season goodbye. Because at this point, if Joel Embiid does not turn around in these next 5 games, I'm not saying that I need him to put up 35 points every single night, but you got to look like you want to be out there. You have to play the game of basketball. You have to be dominant. That's who you are as a player and what you have built your career off of. So I'm giving it 5 games. I'm not saying they have to turn it around completely, but I need to see something. Anything. I mean, this season has been awful. So I look at it now and I say, I'll give them 5 games. If besides that December 3rd game, if we don't see some improvement, kiss all your hopes goodbye, because they might not even get into the play-in. And if they do, they're just going to get knocked out early too.
What are the chances? I can't believe I'm even asking this question, but I'm going to ask it. What are the chances we see this team say, who wants Joel Embiid?
I think something has to happen that is really rough in the locker room between him and Tyrese Maxey, because then you put the pressure on Daryl Morey and you say, well, if there's some tension there, now you have to pick who is going to be your franchise guy, who is going to carry this organization. And to me, I have consistently said that Joel Embiid says he has 8 years left in the league. First off, he does not have 8 years left in the league. He probably only has maybe 1 or 2 years left of his quote unquote prime too. So I look at it now and I say, Tyrese Maxey is going to have this franchise under his arm, in his hand in 2 years. And Joel Embiid can still be the player and play there, but it's not going to be his team because he won't be on the up and up. I say, if there is tension in that locker room, and I cannot believe I'm saying this because I have supported who Joel Embiid has been throughout his career, but if there is tension there and Joel is acting out and says he wants to leave, let him go, because this is going to need to be Tyrese Maxey's team. Now, I hope it doesn't get to that point, and I will take that back if Joel decides to step up and actually play the game of basketball. But it's a good point to bring up, because Tyrese Maxey has shown not only his personality on the court, how hard he works. We talked about this too. When you are a player that wants to be the best, you are in the gym the earliest and you are in the gym the latest. Who on the Philadelphia 76ers is doing that? It's not Joel, it's Tyrese Maxey. And that's the guy I want leading an organization.
You can stay up to date all year on the Philadelphia 76ers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sixers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Jets have turned over their organization. Well, except the quarterback position. Before we get to that, Dion Sanders says he isn't going anywhere. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if they win that first bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And that winning $5 bet could be on some early season NBA basketball. The Sixers' first chance to turn things around comes on the road against the Grizzlies. FanDuel likes the Sixers to win, has them laying 2 points. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Dion Sanders put to bed any notion that he wants to jump ship.
Is that just the
you
price of winning?
You gonna talk like that with my AD in here? That's so disrespectful. Sorry. You gonna talk about me going somewhere with my AD in here?
Just the mentions of it.
Yeah, they mentioned us with a lot of other stuff before we start winning too, didn't they? Did that? That wasn't fair, was it?
Price of winning?
Price. That's the price of everything. Yeah.
Coach Prime,
I'm keep going with that. I'm happy where. Hold on one second. I'm happy where I am, man. I'm good. I got a kickstand down. You know what a kickstand is? A lot of people don't in there, not of age, don't know what a kickstand is. That means I'm resting. I'm good. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm enthusiastic about where I am. I love it here. I truly do. Next question.
From a coach who could get a bigger job to a coach who may lose his job. Kevin Stefanski isn't worried about it in Cleveland, though.
I think probably because I grew up listening to that, I'm smart enough to not worry about outside noise. I get that's part of this gig. That's life in the big city. My sole focus is getting this team ready to get a win on Thursday night. That's it.
And the Lakers welcome the Jazz.
Danny Kamenetsky co-hosts the Locked on Lakers podcast, and the Lakers get a 124-118 win over the Utah Jazz Tuesday night, now 2-0 in NBA Cup play. The game began as a blowout in the making. The Lakers played really smothering, disruptive defense. They held Utah to under 35% from the field, under 17% from behind the arc at the half. But things began to become unfocused for the Lakers in the second half, I think because the whole team was just getting very caught up in Dalton Connect's night. The rookie had 37 points, 21 in the third quarter, hit 9 threes, which ties an NBA record and the most ever for a Lakers rookie. He's also now the fourth Laker of any kind to ever hit 9 threes in a game. So obviously really exciting stuff. For more Lakers coverage, make sure that you are watching Locked on Lakers on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcasts.
Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers said he wanted some accountability in the organization. After firing Robert Saleh and now Joe Douglas, they're running out of people to be held accountable at this point. John Butchko from Locked on Jets joins us. He is always accountable, and at this point is earning a lot of punches on his Locked on Sports Today punch card right now. I'm almost going to get a free sub here or something, John, for all the appearances that you've been making lately. Why now, at this point in the season, make this move if you're the Jets?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know why the Jets do anything that they do. My best guess is, I think the Jets have been like clinging on to this hope that they're going to turn it around. And even though realistically those hopes should have been gone long ago, the last gasp was losing to the Colts to fall to 3-8, because this is the point where they're not turning it around. I mean, you should have known they weren't turning it around, but you kept hearing like every week if you were watching the games, they speak with like the two announcers calling the game and say, we spoke with the Jets today. We feel like the schedule is they feel like the schedule is really opening up. If they just get a win today, it's good. That's going to be a big thing. And you knew it wasn't going to happen, but I think the Jets were kind of in denial about it. But after losing to the Colts to go to 3-8, I mean, even the Jets have to face reality now. They're in their bye week. Joe Douglas was in the final year of his contract anyway. He's not coming back. I guess that they want to get a head start on the general manager search. I mean, I got to be honest with you, as you said, like I'm on this show like practically every Wednesday because like every other Tuesday the Jets are making a crazy move. They fired Robert Saleh on a Tuesday. They traded for Devontae Adams on a Tuesday, and I just think that they realize that it's time to move on. I think that they're finally like the last stages of denial are out the window for this team, and Douglas wasn't coming back anyway, so I guess they just decided to pull the Band-Aid right here.
There's been reporting that Woody Johnson was a driving force behind the Aaron Rodgers acquisition, that he essentially unilaterally fired Robert Saleh. So to what degree do you lay the failures of the Jets that have led to this point at the feet of Joe Douglas?
Well, I think that a lot of the I don't know what the word is, the insane moves you've seen recently,
insanity is a good word for it. Yeah.
Those are at the feet of Woody Johnson, who offered the famous quote about a month ago: "Thinking is overrated." Aaron Rodgers is here because of Woody Johnson. Devontae Adams is here because of Woody Johnson. Woody Johnson fired Robert Saleh because without speaking to Joe Douglas about it. So Joe Douglas has kind of been a general manager in name only. But look, let's remember why Aaron Rodgers. The other reason Aaron Rodgers is here is because Zach Wilson failed, and Zach Wilson was Joe Douglas's handpicked quarterback. And you can go down the list, drafting Mekhi Becton over Tristan Wirfs in 2020. That was the first draft Douglas ran. A lot of the free agent moves he's made that haven't worked out. Laken Tomlinson at left guard. There was enough bad for Joe Douglas that you can justify his firing. And I
most
think
GMs do not get 2 cracks at the quarterback. That is usually, and most of them don't get a second crack if they screw up the first one.
Right. So, I think part of the reason Joe Douglas went along with Woody Johnson, taking command is that, he was lucky to have a job to begin with. So this was a chance to save himself. And look, if Aaron Rodgers is playing like vintage Aaron Rodgers, Joe Douglas might be able to, get another contract out of it. But I've been making 2 jokes on Locked On Jets. One is that, do you remember the planet Pluto that's not a planet anymore? And there's this stretch, is it a planet? Is it not? That's kind of like what Joe Douglas has been the last couple of months. It's is he really the GM? Is he not? Nobody really knew. And the other thing is after Robert Saleh got fired, you didn't hear from Joe Douglas anywhere because Woody Johnson was running the show. And it was almost to me like that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza avoided his girlfriend because if the girlfriend couldn't find him, she couldn't break up with him. It kind of felt like Joe Douglas was avoiding Woody Johnson because if Woody Johnson couldn't find him, he couldn't fire him. I guess Joe Douglas finally ran into Woody Johnson at the hall of the team facility, and so now he's out of a job.
Okay. I was having trouble taking all of that in because it was just such a splendid metaphor. Thank you so much for that. Aaron Rodgers said just a couple of days ago, said he wanted to play next year. How does this regime change impact the likeliness that you view that as being a part of this organization's plan moving forward?
Well, there have been a lot of reports recently that Rodgers would be very hesitant to return if the Jets cleaned house, because if you bring somebody new in, I don't think they're going to accept the terms that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich have lived under, which Aaron Rodgers is in control because, again, they were kind of lucky to still be around. So they kind of had to go for this whole thing where Rodgers had an inordinate amount of say over how the team operates. I think realistically, how are you going to convince anybody to take the job if Aaron Rodgers is back? Because as much as you can say, Aaron Rodgers just becomes a player, and by the way, Aaron Rodgers is not playing very well, and that's one of the reasons this team is 3-8. He looks like increasingly looks like a quarterback who's 40 years old and on his last legs. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how you can bring somebody new in, and because if you bring Aaron Rodgers back, that means you have to bring back Devontae Adams. It means you have to bring back Alan Lazard. So you're just delaying the rebuilding process. And by the time you can rebuild, by the time you can actually tear this down and rebuild, the new GM will have been fired because, the team will have been bad for a couple of years. So I think that, the odds are becoming slimmer of Aaron Rodgers returning by the week. And I think that this virtually ends the possibility of Aaron Rodgers return in 2025. But yeah, look, it's the Jets. You can never rule anything out. But logic would dictate this. But again, it's the Jets. So logic doesn't always dictate what the Jets do. So we'll see. But my guess is Rodgers is not coming back.
Maybe Undersecretary of HHS is in the cards for Aaron Rodgers. We'll see. Thanks, John. Stay up to date on the New York Jets all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Jets on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Celtics ended the Cavaliers' unbeaten streak to open the season. The Cavs won their first 15 games, then they lost to the Celtics in game 16, but they fought back in the end to make it a game late. And this start does not look like a fluke. John Corrales breaks down how the Celtics maintained their status as the number one team in the Eastern Conference after the game.
Let's just start with this. The Celtics have the belt. The Celtics break the streak. The Celtics are now the best team in the NBA again, right? That's how it works. The Cavs made this interesting in the third quarter. It was funny in the third quarter. Celtics go up 21. Jason Tatum hits a three-pointer. You could feel the game start to slow down. You could feel the Cavs make a couple of baskets. The Celtics offense, all of a sudden, you could just tell it was different. Joe Mazzulla calls a timeout after just 6 or 5 points from the Cavs, and the Cavs go on this massive run, cut it down to 2 in the fourth quarter. They have chances to tie. They have chances to make this a game, brand new game. But we've seen a million times in basketball, if you can't make that cut, if you can't get all the way back to a lead, if you can't come back and get that thing tied, if you're making that run from the third quarter and you just can't get over that hump somewhere in that fourth quarter, then you're just never going to have a chance, right? You need to take the lead before the other team can answer. And the Celtics had their answer before the Cavs could take a lead. And it's just, they were down 21. If they had taken that 1 or 2 point lead early in the fourth quarter, I think they would have won this game. We've seen that happen a bunch to the Celtics, against the Celtics. The Celtics doing it to other teams. So credit to the Cavs for making that run. The Celtics kind of slipped a little bit. And once you slip against the Cavs, it gets to be very, very difficult, and they can make their run pretty quickly. But credit the Celtics now for that fourth quarter. Al Horford was huge. I think the turning point in this game were the 2 blocked shots that he had. It's about 4.5 minutes to go. The Celtics had just made it a 5-point game. Al Horford gets a block. You come down. Derek White hits a 3. Al Horford goes down the other end on the defensive end, gets another block. Derek White came down, and the next 3-pointer just barely missed. If that 3 had fallen and made it an 11-point game, the building would have come down. It just would have been insane. It was already, the momentum was building. If Derek White had hit that second 3-pointer and you went block 3, wow, that would have been one of the all-time stretches for the Celtics.
And finally, one of the best to ever do it has decided he's done doing it. Rafael Nadal's incredible tennis career came to an end after Spain lost its Davis Cup quarterfinal against the Netherlands on Tuesday. Nadal reflected on it all after the match, saying the titles and the numbers are there, so people probably know that. But the way I would like to be remembered is being a good person from a small village in Mallorca, where I had the luck to have my uncle as a tennis coach. Nadal will go down as one of the absolute best tennis players there ever was, in an era where he was up against some other greatest players to ever play the game. Guys like Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer. This has been a golden age of men's tennis. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, do the Browns have a prayer on Thursday night? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.